Oh, definitely. Especially those thinking about it, because I was in the same boat and I had a lot of reservation. Like, I think it's harder if you've never had roommates before. So maybe I would give that a whirl. But at the same time, if you're ready and you got to know, like, you want to be around a community of like-minded people. You got to really believe that quote about the sum being the sum of the five people you spend the most time with. Like, if you really believe in that and you really think that that's like going to influence you, I believe in it 100%. That's why I made the move. So if you believe in that, I'd say that's enough on itself to let you make that leap of faith. And yeah, I also say, like, you should also expect that the first 2 weeks can be very, very jarring. I, having lived in Korea, Vietnam, Japan, Australia, and now San Diego, each of those leaps, those first 2 weeks were hard. Like, you don't know anybody, you're in a whole new environment, and that doesn't mean it's not the right place for you. And so I'd say, like, if anyone who's also recently co-living, even if it's a month or two and you're still struggling, like, that's to me a part of the process. Like, I didn't really start catching my stride till like 3 weeks here, 3 weeks in. And I would say really catching my stride in the last month after living here for about after living here about 3 or 4 months. Now I feel like it's home, but it takes time. You're moving somewhere totally new. So don't let that make you think it's the co-living is the issue. It really just might be the new environment, and any new environment of that extreme change is going to affect your mental health a little bit.
Christine here with another episode of the Coliving Code Show. You guys can find us on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, and iTunes. Also, would love, love, love you guys to leave a review, and a big thank you to those that already have. We appreciate it. We are the longest running show on co-living, so definitely check back on our other episodes. We are celebrating our 3-year anniversary of the show, which is really cool. So thanks again for you guys that have followed along for a very long time. So on today's episode, we actually brought on a co-liver. So as you guys know, last year, around the same time, we actually brought on each of my housemates that live here at the Epic Entrepreneur House in San Diego, just to kind of get them to tell their perspective of co-living. Versus us interviewing operators like we normally do. And we actually got amazing feedback from all our listeners, whether they were investors, operators, because they were really intrigued to see the different demographic that is actually co-living, the different ages, the professionals, it's not the college student millennials necessarily that are co-living. So we are bringing on our newest housemate, Tim Chard. He just moved in a few months back. So it's really cool to get him on the show for this episode. He actually owns a digital marketing agency, and he has actually co-lived before. He actually co-lived in Japan, in Tokyo, and there was about 50 housemates total. And then he scaled down to a place with 7 housemates also out there. And he definitely dives into kind of the difference between intentional co-living, like, entrepreneurship, mastermind sessions, etc., versus co-living out of necessity, which is expats in Japan. So we also talk about that a little bit. And before we launch in, let me actually give a quick shout out to our amazing partners. They've been partners of the show for a while now. It's ISL Furnishings. They are a brand created through Inner Space Living. They're all about creating exciting spaces where design meets function. We actually had Abe and also Quentin Kearns, who is the designer they work directly with. We had both of them on for an interview just pretty recently within the last few episodes. So you can check out that interview. That was super cool. And they obviously believe strongly in the co-living industry. They already work with some of the larger companies. They've done work with Quarters, with Star City. They were founded on the mission to bring your brand to life, and they want to revolutionize the unit furniture experience. And they're obviously driven by creativity, because they believe interiors should inspire brilliance, and every venue has its own voice, and they exist to clarify that voice and interpret your brand vision. So trust your unit interiors to ISL Furnishings. They bring light to your vision. So let's go ahead and launch right into today's episode. So welcome to the show, my housemate who moved in earlier this year, Tim.
Hey there, I'm Tim. I run an advertising agency called Ascenial. And a big reason, in fact, the main reason I moved to San Diego was to live in the Epic Entreprenuer House, to be Chrissy's roommate, along with a bunch of other amazing individuals. And yeah, Chrissy, would you like me to give like a little backstory of my career, or a little short tidbit of how I got to starting a company?
Yes, for sure.
Okay, cool. So like basically, really where my career really pivoted and took off was about 7 or 8 years ago. I was living in Tokyo, Japan, which was also one of my first experiences with co-living, which more than happy to talk about there. Very different than what's going on today, but also very similar. And essentially when I was there, I started a Tokyo nightlife blog. I was a bit of a party boy and learned about marketing and online marketing through that until I eventually built it to be the #1 Tokyo nightlife website in the world and was able to sell that, use those skills to be a marketer. And, I'm sure a lot of your people watching this show know about digital marketing. And that's really where I got my career started. And as it progressed through the years and I came back to the United States, I ended up joining a software company, being their marketing director, leading that to an M&A by Hootsuite, which was a big company at the time. And from there, I just kind of got into agency world, ran an agency for a while and decided to start my own. And that's what I do today. I basically do advertising on Facebook, Google, you name it. And we really focus on high growth startups, whether they're e-commerce, SaaS, or apps. So that's really my main focus and drive today. And it's just celebrated my 2nd-year anniversary in the e-house.
Yay, awesome. And
Yeah.
then, or of your business, but happened to now live in the e-house.
Yeah, it was a nice place to celebrate. Yeah, it was a really nice
Yes.
place to celebrate.
And then obviously with COVID, a lot of people that are co-living, have to start, had to move into working from home. And then obviously you're working from home. So I'd love to hear like if that's more productive for you, working from your room/office.
Oh yeah. Because as you can see, this is my office. And yeah, great point, because I basically throughout that journey that I went through from Tokyo to now, which I think was about 7 years, I spent a lot of time in co-working spaces, even though I wasn't co-living in places. And I think that was essential. So if for anyone living on their own, I would really recommend you go out there and experience a co-working space because it can be very isolating. And I've been remote this entire last 7 years. So, but for me now, with having a bunch of entrepreneurs living in the same roof, under the same roof as me, I don't really feel the need to go out to another office space. And I actually you can't see it now because this is my bedroom, but the other half of my room is an office. And basically it's just, I got sound panels, I have my calendar, I have my whiteboard, I have my motivational quotes. And so when I'm facing this way all day, I don't even feel like I'm in my room. I feel like, and if I want to take a lunch break, I literally just go lay right there and just kind of ignore this half of my room. So I really do have it siloed as much as it appears to be all in the same space.
Nice. And then you said you'd co-lived with how many people before?
Yeah. So yeah, I think this is something I could really add value to everyone listening here is just like understanding the difference between living with a bunch of people and co-living in the sense of having a shared interest and passions. So I lived in a share house of a share house unit of 50 people. It was 50 people, and it was a shared living room and a shared kitchen. Huge kitchen, huge living room. And my room was right next to the living room. So I got to meet everyone in the house. I would open my door, there'd be like 20 people watching a movie, and I would just chill and watch the movie with them. And the shared passion there was everyone was there to learn Japanese or was interested in Japanese culture or came for a Japanese job. At the same time, like it was everyone had very different backgrounds, which made for an interesting time, but there wasn't a deep sense of community, which I think is what you find in a place like the Epic Entreprenuer House, or, I have friends in the music industry. They live in music production homes where everyone's a producer, and you're going to get more of a community there. At the same time, like living with 50 people, you do learn about dishes real quick and how crazy those get. And you learn about noise, especially when you're the guy next to the TV room, and how to approach those situations, right? Like, I'm very like moving into the Epic Entrepreneur House, learning to deal with roommates isn't something I have an issue with. Like if the dishes aren't being done, I just, politely talk about it with them. And so those experiences taught me that. But yeah, outside of that, eventually, to be fair, living with 50 people gets a little nuts. So eventually I moved into a 7-person house, which was similar to where I'm living now. And it was really great. I mean, obviously you save a lot of money. I'm able to live in the heart of Shibuya, which is where like whenever you see this, like the pedestrian crossing in Tokyo, that's where I lived. And, very exciting, only able to live there because of the cost savings. But at the same time, like, most people there were just English teachers, which is no offense if that's something you're passionate about and you enjoy doing. But for me, that's not like what I wanted to be doing with my life. And so when I'm surrounded by everyone just kind of comfortable and doing this activity that I don't enjoy, it does psychologically affect you. And if anything, I do think like you need to make sure you surround yourself physically in an environment with people that are aligned with you. And as kind as those people were, and as great roommates as they were, that wasn't really like what I think co-living is about. To me, that was just co-living to save money rather than co-living to make myself a better person and experience growth. And that's really what this house is, and why when I saw the opportunity, I literally decided to move across the country pretty much within 24 hours, because I knew those past experiences and I knew where I wanted to be. And I just, as soon as I heard about the Epic Entrepreneur House, it was like, that's it. That's that's community, that's shared growth, that's vision, that's self-development, that's all that stuff all wrapped into one location. So
And you're 33 or 34? How old are you?
I'm 34 years old. So
Cool.
yeah. And I left Japan when I was 28, and I lived in Asia from like 23 to 28. So.
And then you're from Atlanta, Georgia. You moved
Yeah,
from
I'm
there
from
to
the
here.
South. I got rid of my accent. I could say y'all, taught like this, but I try not to, even though that's where all my friends have Southern accents.
Oh my God. And
But
then I
yeah,
love, and you're in music production also.
that's my
Music
hobby.
producer.
Yeah, that's my big hobby.
Yeah. And then Sarek, who's our other housemate, who we will bring on too. He's lived here since December. I really need to get him on. Was the one that referred you over, right, to the house.
Yeah. And what I really love about that is, we all have our passions. And, when I was younger, I wanted to be a famous DJ. And if I'm going to be honest, who doesn't want to be a famous DJ, right? But what I love about that is it was still a passion of mine to become a better music producer. And I also wanted to be an entrepreneur. Well, little did I know that would all intersect and all come together eventually. And I took Sarek, one of our roommates, courses on music production back in 2016, and formed a relationship with him. And I basically did his advertising, and he helped me with my music. And then we kind of became friends until eventually we just were buddies. We didn't really work together anymore. I did music on my own. He did his ads on his own. And sure enough, like, it all came together into earlier this year when we were having our annual phone call where we would just talk for hours on end. And he told me about this house and what's going on there. And I thought, hell yeah. So yeah, I think the big underlying thing I want to get across with that story though is like why it's so important to also pursue like not just entrepreneurship, but if you have your creative pursuits, like it does all connect. Like this would not have happened. My entrepreneurial journey would not have happened had I not also pursued my love of music, even though that wasn't what my career is or earned me money or anything like that. Yet it's opened up a door, ironically, for the biggest entrepreneurial growth I've ever experienced being here. So, yeah.
And so what would you say is your favorite part about living here?
Yeah, I think definitely the routine of the masterminds on Mondays. So every Monday we sit around for 2 hours and we talk about our personal and professional issues and any house things. I think like sometimes, not going to lie, sometimes I've had a heavy Monday and it's like, oh man, that's very intensive. But like a good workout, when you go and do it afterwards, you're like, I'm really glad I did that. Like I'm really glad like I took the energy and time to sit down with these people and talk about this stuff. And then by creating it, it's almost like a ritual. And I feel like having those rituals really are a foundation of community as well. It's like we consistently do that. We consistently show up regardless of how us as an individual feels to make sure we continue that communal space. And I think like that's hands down my favorite part. Besides renting a boat and getting a little tipsy on the bay, which is awesome. But that's not like the real growth. So yeah.
And what about our wine nights?
Now
that COVID calmed down.
Oh shoot, okay.
Events.
Yeah, I should make a distinction there. Like that. So when we talk about the e-house and the communal bonds with those we're living close to, yes, but like the events we do, that is like that's where the networking happens, right? That's where we meet everybody and we also create a sense of larger community. It's kind of like taking our 6-person unit and turning it into 100-something person unit. And so actually, Chrissy, I mean, you've been doing a rockstar job of organizing boat trips, organizing like dinners and outings, and just like, and together as a house, we're even doing with our chef here, we're doing a small plate speakeasy, which is like our own like the house making an entrepreneurial venture with our chef, which I think is amazing. Just pretty much whoever enters our lives, we put him in the entrepreneurial space. And yeah, I think like our wine nights have been a place where I've consistently met people that I can talk to for hours on end and grow my own network, not just for like personal gain, but just like for my own skill and expertise. Like I literally spoke with another agency owner, because I run an agency, who I met at wine night, who is in his 50s and has been doing this for much longer than I have. I just celebrated my 2nd-year anniversary. And so talking to him for an hour was so enlightening, and would have never happened had we not just been drinking a red wine together. And like, I think like also having these people all show up together at these wine nights makes you feel like a part of San Diego and not just the Epic Entrepreneur House. And I think that's important to touch on. Thanks for reminding me about that. That's like a massive part of being here. I was just thinking within our little group, but you're right. It's much bigger than that.
And for somebody, and you just moved to San Diego, so you're looking to make new friends. And I always tell people that I'm like, you literally, when you move into a house, with 5 other people, you literally, quadruple, more than quadrupled your network, because you're tapping everybody else's network at the same time. And then what about, so you talked about the Monday Night Mastermind, you talked about the wine nights as far as events. And then of course we threw in a fun little Cinco de Mayo party. That one had 70. That was our first party since the COVID situation. So it was like 70 people here, which was a blast. It was fun back in May. And then what about, the last events that we do on a consistent basis is the quarterly retreats. So you got to go to that.
Yeah. That's, and that's kind of like taking our unit and putting it somewhere else to spice things up. And I think, do you want me to talk about that some?
Like, what you got.
I think like basically, and I really wish what I took away from that too, is feeling like doing that. If everyone could do that with a group of close friends, the world would be so much of a better place. Because what we did was spend almost 2 days, pretty much, I'd say at least a whole day's worth of going through each area of our own life and being very vulnerable with each other and sharing like how we would rate ourselves with the wheel of life. But like, however you want to do it, how you would rate yourself in business, your relationships, your physical health. I can't remember all at the top of my head, but just doing that, it's not only good for you to do yourself, but by doing it with people, it makes you have to be more honest in a way that like you might not be able to get to if it's just you alone in a room. And the fact you're outside of your home and you're in an environment that is intentionally set to do that self-work is super crucial for getting these insights into your psyche and into your mind. And it's just very supportive too. I think like having everyone together there. I mean, I cried at a pizza place. Like I definitely got emotional about this stuff. Like it's hard stuff, and not every area of my life is great. And having to admit that to people is really difficult. And but by doing that, I ended up feeling closer to all of y'all. And there's my Southern coming out. All of y'all, and feeling much better about that. And since that team retreat, like my business score has almost doubled. Like I feel like it's like gotten so much because of the support I had.
That's
Oops,
awesome.
Did I lose my video? One sec. There we go. Oh, whoops, 1 second.
Oh yeah, you have the nice camera.
Technical difficulty there.
Yeah, no, you're fine. And so you are leading up. So I know everybody on this podcast, well, a lot of people from Europe listen to this podcast, and they already know how much I love Europe. And so I went last month to Italy, and now next month you are heading up our first house Euro trip.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, talk a little tiny bit about that. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm really excited to do that. And I think it's kind of I didn't realize I was heading it up until all of a sudden I was the one booking the flights. And then I was like, oh, wait, I have to make other people do this. I booked my flights, and then I got all my roommates to book flights. So yeah, basically it's hard to do trips, especially with the pandemic starting to have this resurgence. But at the same time, it's a great, flights are cheap, and kind of this whole, like, you only live once thing. And also like, this is a unique time. We're all entrepreneurs in this entrepreneur house, but like, who knows, different things change as the months go on. So while we're all together, let's like go do as many things as possible. And going to Europe just had that sense of adventure that I felt like, what a better crew to go do it with. yeah, I have my childhood friends and all that, but like they're not in the same place as I am in life right now or doing the same things. And I'm so close and comfortable with everyone here. It's like couldn't imagine better travel buddies. And to go to Prague, which I've always wanted to see and explore, and then Kiev, and then we're just throwing in Chernobyl to spice things up a little bit. So get more glow on our face. But yeah, that's like basically where yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to do that. And I also think it's really cool to kind of be the one to push the trip forward. And it made me feel more a part of the house to be able to lead a little bit there. And yeah, you reminded me, I need to like get on hotels and hostels and do some more research for sure.
Fun. I know. And then I'm of course I'm sneaking over to Italy right before, and I'm meeting up with you guys. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I get that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Italy has some good people.
Yes. And food and a lot of other stuff. But
Yeah.
yes. Okay, so let's see here. A couple last questions for you, Tim. If you ever moved out, what's your best guess on what the reason would be?
Oh, I think the best guess for me would be the development and pursuit of an intimate romantic partner and basically like taking that to a level of like, a kind of an attachment bond that as close as you can become with roommates and friends, like it's not really possible to have that kind of level of mutual like dependence. And, obviously I think that would be the only thing I can think of that would lead me to move out. And I don't imagine that being a quick thing either.
Yeah.
I think like it would be in the sense I'd be moving out of the house to move in with somebody else. That's the only thing I could see as to moving out of the entrepreneur house.
Or you can get creative, like one of the recent housemates that now has a girlfriend, and the girlfriend lives close by, mile
That's
or two.
true. That is true.
Yeah.
That is true.
But their plan is, okay, down the road, we get a really nice place together, but then I still can live here too. And I kind of like live at both places. So
yeah. Like, I mean, however people want to swing it, I'm not really sure how I'd swing it either. I just know that, that's the only thing I could think of.
Or in the same neighborhood, on the same street, you guys. We end up all like
progression, right? Like it does seem a little jarring to go from like living and sharing all these deep experiences with, 5 or 6 people. And then all of a sudden it's just me and a girl.
But then see, we
putting a lot on her. It's putting a little bit too much on her.
Yeah.
So
I guess it's how we all are going to evolve eventually,
when that phase, I kind of look at building a family as like a phase of life as somebody who doesn't have a family. Yeah. That said, we have a lot of people in the entrepreneurial community who do have children. Craig Stern of Sunrise Leads, like he has a kid, and like he's able to also hang with us, and it's not like a limiting factor. And I think I've had to also, as I'm 34 and I'm interacting with people with families, realizing you can be an entrepreneur and have a family. They're not mutually exclusive. And I think I definitely used to think, especially in my late 20s, that like you could not have both.
No, so. For sure. Awesome. So any words of advice for those who are thinking about co-living or already are?
Oh, definitely. Especially those thinking about it, because I was in the same boat and I had a lot of reservation. Like, I think it's harder if you've never had roommates before. So maybe I would give that a whirl. But at the same time, if you're ready and you got to know, like, you want to be around a community of like-minded people. You got to really believe that quote about the sum being the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Like, if you really believe in that and you really think that that's like going to influence you, I believe in it 100%. That's why I made the move. So if you believe in that, I'd say that's enough on itself to let you make that leap of faith. And yeah, I also say, like, you should also expect that the first 2 weeks can be very, very jarring. Having lived in Korea, Vietnam, Japan, Australia, and now San Diego, each of those leaps, those first 2 weeks were hard. Like, you don't know anybody, you're in a whole new environment, and that doesn't mean it's not the right place for you. And so I'd say, like, if anyone who's also recently co-living, even if it's a month or 2 and you're still struggling, like, that's to me a part of the process. Like, I didn't really start catching my stride till like 3 weeks here, 3 weeks in. And I would say really catching my stride in the last month after living here about 3 or 4 months. Now I feel like it's home, but it takes time. You're moving somewhere totally new. So don't let that don't let that make you think it's the co-living is the issue. It really just might be the new environment, and any new environment of that extreme change is going to affect your mental health a little bit. So that'd be my advice. Just like understanding that those quote unquote negative emotions are a part of the process when you move.
Yeah. And I know that was my last question, but I'd love for you to elaborate, because I don't even know the answer. I didn't know it was like kind of a struggle for you those first couple weeks.
Yeah. It's always been. Yeah.
But here, what was giving you kind of a little hard time, or you weren't feeling comfortable? Like, I'd love for you to elaborate on that.
Sure. So I think, I left a lot of really close friends. I grew up in Atlanta. My childhood friends were in Atlanta. My father, my sister are in Atlanta. And so, that was my support network. At the same time, I was like, I need a different type of support network. So I had to let that one go. And there's this like purgatory, because I don't know any of y'all yet. And I'm not going to just open my heart and trust. I know that's going to happen, but like the type of person I am, it's going to take me some time to make sure I feel secure and make sure I can be vulnerable without like being too vulnerable too quickly. And, like you would with anyone, you're not going to go talk to some random person on the street and tell them about like your grandpa who died, right? Like you gotta wait till you have some trust built. And I think until that trust is built, you end up feeling pretty lonely, because you do feel by yourself. So yeah, I would say like, as far as feeling wise, just loneliness is something. And I can tell that from like literally every other move. I felt the same way in Australia. I felt the same way in Japan. I felt the same way in Korea. So like, I knew it before I even came out here. I'm like, okay, I'm going to feel those weird loneliness things for a few weeks, because I just left everything comfortable behind. I had a specific spot in Georgia I would drive to in the park and meditate. Like all right. Like I don't have any of that. Also, my camera keeps dying. One sec. There we go. But yeah, all of that is gone when you go somewhere new. But now I've built new places. I still need to find a spot to go meditate in the woods, but there's not really many woods over here. But yeah, that's hopefully that answers the question. It's just that it's you're leaving your comfort zone. And I mean, like you're from California, Chrissy. Do I remember that correctly? Yeah. So maybe for people who are like moving in state, you're not going to deal with that as much, like I'm on the other side of the country, so it's a little bit harder.
Hey, that's how you grow though, right? You get uncomfortable.
That is how you grow. And also, yeah, I mean, like, and now I have a completely new, it also, by leaving the comfort zone, it forces you to create a new network. And that was a big thing I struggled with back in Georgia, is I would just like hang out with my friends, even though they weren't like doing the same things as me, and they weren't aligned with me on the physical or professional, but they were comfortable and they accepted me for who I was. And it made it like in a way harder for me to try to branch out. Like, since I moved to San Diego, I do this, Chrissy, I'll go out by myself sometimes. I never did that in Atlanta, even before the pandemic. Right. Like but now because I've did this leap, it also gave me this newfound confidence that like, oh, I can just like go to places by myself and have a good time. I can go to a music event by myself. I can go to a bar by myself. Like I can have a great time doing that. And I end up meeting people, making more friends, because I'm not like clinging to comfort. I'm not clinging to that old friend. So yeah,
good
it's been
stuff.
Great.
Well, Tim, thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it. Yeah,
you're welcome. And yeah, I hope, obviously I'm a very good testimonial for co-living. I think it's been pivotal for me. And I hope like this has helped people see the difference between like roommates versus co-living. And also like part of the leap is discomfort, but it opens up so many doors. And yeah, hopefully we got to get people on your podcast to come to one of our wine nights, because that's where it's at. That's where it's at.
Any LA, San Diego. Yes.
You're welcome. For sure. Come down to a wine night. Come say what's up. Cool. But yeah. Okay. Awesome, Chrissy. Thank you for having me on.
Of course. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for checking out this episode. And keep in mind, we are on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, and iTunes. Also, we have a link in the show notes for our 3 books on co-living. You can also find one of them on Amazon.com if you'd like the print version. And lastly, a very quick shout out to our partners over at ISL Furnishings. They bring light to your vision and already work with some of the larger companies like Star City and Quarters.